Welcome to Arirang News Special. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jungmin. We begin in New Delhi, where the second and final day of the G20 Summit is taking place on this Sunday. South Korean President Yoon is set to speak at the last session on digital technologies and multilateral cooperation under the theme of One Future. There, he will lay out measures to put his global pivotal state vision into practice. Our correspondent, Oh Sooyoung, joins us from the Korean Press Center in the Indian capital. Good morning to you, Sooyoung. So it's also the final. Good afternoon. Good morning. It's also the final day of the president's weeks-long diplomacy in Jakarta and New Delhi. Tell us what the atmosphere is like over there.
Right, as you can see, we've woken up to a rather wet and rainy morning, but the mood is very hopeful after the leaders reached consensus on their joint communique on Saturday, amid concerns that differences over Russia's invasion of Ukraine would mean a consensus wouldn't be reached for the first time since the multilateral summit was held in 2008. There has admittedly been a softening of the text concerning Russia's role in the Ukraine war compared to last year's Bali declaration. But the consensus is still meaningful and quite significant, given the 112 outcomes and presidency documents achieved. Now, in that regard, there's anticipation surrounding the third session today, where President Yoon will be touching upon reforming and strengthening multilateralism. He's been engaging with a number of world leaders, not just in the G20 sessions, but on the sidelines with up to 10 bilaterals scheduled throughout the G20 until today. And also at the gala dinner yesterday, where Yoon and First Lady Kim sat close to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, US President Joe Biden, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. The dinner provided space for the leaders to hold friendly and candid talks intended to build rapport and trust in the spirit of multilateralism outside the official sessions.
And Sooyoung, now let's talk about what's on President Yoon's agenda today, including at the third session of the G20 Summit, where he will be speaking.
Of course, Jungmin. The president will speak again at the third and final session, as you said, called One Future, where he'll map out South Korea's role and contribution to building a free, rules-based international order. Now, he's likely to expand Seoul's support for Ukraine and call on G20 members to establish new global norms for the sustainable and ethical advancement of digital technology. Ahead of his arrival in New Delhi, Yoon has told local media that at a time when the world economy is facing challenges such as geopolitical competition, high inflation, and the protracted war in Ukraine, the G20 countries must demonstrate their leadership in order to overcome the challenges facing humanity and move towards a shared prosperity for one future. Now, symbolic of their move to build a brighter future together, leaders on Sunday will lay wreaths at the Mahatma Gandhi's tomb in New Delhi before attending a tree planting ceremony.
And President Yoon has already announced measures in regards to the global response to climate change.
Yes, Jungmin. So that came at the first session of the G20 on Saturday, where President Yoon laid out Korea's specific contributions in order to overcome the global climate crisis. First of all, he announced the plan to contribute $300 million to the Green Climate Fund, or GCF, which provides financing for low-emission and climate-resilient projects in developing countries. The top office says that Yoon is aiming to take the lead in providing financial aid and technical support to countries that lack the capacity to develop green technologies on their own, and also might lack the infrastructure to go carbon neutral. South Korea's Hongdo City actually hosts the headquarters of the GCF, as you may know, which was established under the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change back in 2010. President Yoon also pledged to bolster cooperation to help other countries make the transition to clean energy and strengthen energy security based on South Korea's nuclear and hydrogen power technology. In particular, with Korea's plans to accelerate the development of small nuclear reactors and lead the world in mass production and distribution of hydrogen-powered cars. The top office says that the country has the industrial prowess to lead the green transition, which will also help create new export markets for Korea. Now, another point was decarbonising ships and shipping routes. This is now based on Seoul and Washington's pledge last year to create a green cargo shipping corridor that links the port of Busan with the US ports of Seattle and Tacoma. By presenting these ways, South Korea can best contribute and also benefit from the green transition across the world. Seoul hopes to also become recognized as a leading country in climate action, as well as a powerhouse of carbon neutral industries.
All right. And finally, Sooyoung, the president's trip to India comes in the year of 50th anniversary year of diplomatic ties between the two countries. We know he's going to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi before he returns to Seoul. So what do we know about their summit so far?
Right, well, we don't exactly have the time or location just yet, but a presidential official has told us that the meeting is expected to take place today before President Yoon leaves for Seoul. And while President Yoon himself, he has said that when he meets with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, they're going to look to strengthen trade and economic relations, first discussing the 2010 Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement reached between the two sides, as well as the cooperation that they can take in the defense industry and high-tech supply chains. Yoon and Modi will also look to enhance infrastructure cooperation through Seoul's Economic Development Cooperation Fund and ramp up joint research and collaboration in areas like space, nuclear energy, biohealth, and other key industries. Now, the presidential office has emphasized that India is a very important partner for South Korea, not just because of its sizable young demographic and market potential, but also because the two countries share core values, which include freedom and democracy. Now, on that note, they're going to discuss how they can further that cooperation and also coordinate on global issues, including at multilateral forums like here at the G20.